As always, we will begin with 3 deep breaths. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose, out of the mouth, in through the nose, out of the mouth. Last one, in through the nose and out of the mouth. Today's topic is going to be speaking into Imbolc, rebirthing, drum journeys, connecting with the gentle, little tiniest bit of light, the return of the light. I'm not sure what I'm calling this episode yet, so that's kind of an overview of the things that I want to discuss with you guys today. If you are somebody who has listened to Wolf Mother podcast for some time now, you've probably seen other episodes, and maybe you follow me on different social media platforms, so you've seen me speak about this in other ways. So let's start with, first and foremost, for those of you that don't know what Imbolc is and where it comes from. So I am somebody who teaches a lot about earth wisdom, and I teach in alignment with the Wheel of the Year. And what is the Wheel of the Year? The Wheel of the Year is something that comes and it allows us the opportunity to live in rhythm with the cycles of the earth. The earth is always shifting and changing in its seasons, and the Wheel of the Year has 8 different Sabbats. We have the high Sabbats, right? And those are usually the ones that everybody knows are the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes that we have every year. But we also have these cross-quarter days, right? And so Imbolc, for the calendar year, this is the first Sabbat that we have for the calendar year of 2026. And every year that the calendar shifts, Imbolc is the first celebration that we have. And I always love this Sabbat as something because I really love to teach about the womb of the winter. For those of you that have joined my Womb of the Winter cacao ceremonies and Womb of the Winter cacao dietas, you know how important I feel understanding the spirit of winter is. And the thing that I love about Imbolc is that it's one of those cross-quarter days with the Wheel of the Year. And the Wheel of the Year and a lot of these Sabbats come from Celtic festivals, Gaelic festivals, Welsh festivals, Scottish festivals, Irish festivals, right? And so these really come from beautiful European traditions that we still get to make modern opportunities for us to live in rhythm with the earth around us. And I also feel like, I'm just going to drop this in here as well, because I do feel it's an important piece of the puzzle, is that working with the roots that you have, right? Like, my roots are European. For those of you that don't know, I've lived in Peru for the last 3 years. I work with various different indigenous wisdom keepers. And I always like to remind people, like, I feel the popular thing nowadays is to just get yourself into the plant medicine world. But also, with me having Italian American roots, there's incredible folk magic that comes from my Italian American roots, right? And so if you have any European ancestry, like, I definitely recommend that you get into some of this stuff. And the way that I got into it was that in high school, I loved reading folklore. When I was in elementary school, fun fact about me, when I was in elementary school, I used to do these storytelling contests. And so basically they're exactly what you would imagine. You learn a folktale and then everybody gets to get up on stage and you have to give life to this folktale, and you do get graded and you do get judged on it. And so there's a winner. And so I did it for 3 years when I was in elementary school. And for 2 years, I came in second place. And then finally in my 5th grade year, I came in first place. And I was very excited. So anyway, I've always loved folklore. And so in high school, I got really deep into reading very pagan-based, European-based folklore. And that was actually how I learned about what the Wheel of the Year was and what all of these Sabbats were and a lot of these deities and these gods and goddesses and just some really beautiful stuff. So that is my recommendation if you are somebody that you're completely new to this. Definitely make sure to get in there. And also, before I continue talking about it, on February 7th, 2026 at 12 p.m. EST, we are going to be gathering for Imbolc. We're going to be doing a shamanic rebirthing drum ceremony on Zoom inside of the Wolf Mother Patreon page. If you're not a part of it and you want to be a part of it, just go into the show notes on whatever platform that you're watching and you can totally join us. It will be wonderful. And then you'll also get to join us for all of the other Sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. So, Imbolc, it is the first flicker of light, right? So the womb of the winter is so important. And now I'm bundled up and outside, even though I live in the fucking southern hemisphere right now. I have chosen to live in the mountains, so sometimes it's very cold, even though it's summer. And so this is the first flicker of light that we get inside of the womb of the winter. Now, for those of you back in Staten Island, back in New York, if you don't know, I'm originally from Staten Island, New York. It's really cold there. You guys just had a crazy storm all over the Northeast. You guys just got so much snow. So it probably doesn't feel to you right now that you're getting the first flicker of spring and light returning. You probably still feel like you're deep in the womb of the winter. And that's why I love teaching for Imbolc in this way, because I love reminding people we live in this world, right, that loves to talk about the cycle of life and the cycle of death. But when we hear about it, people go, it's life, death, life, death, life. Like, it's just, you talk about those. But if you're watching me on YouTube, you're seeing my hand. You've got life down here, right? And then you move slightly up towards death. There was a way that you moved. And this is why I teach about Imbolc being the birthing canal. Now, there are definitely other things that I will go into and talk about that are a bit more quote unquote traditional. I love to speak about the Cailleach and Brigid, and that is one of my favorite folklore for Imbolc to share with people. It's because at this time of the year, we're having the crone energy, right? Like you have the maiden energy, which is the young woman, then you have the mother, and then you have the crone, right? And so at this point, what happens is the crone, her energy watches over winter. And then when we have spring come back again, that is once again maiden energy. And so there's a handing off, right? There's a tossing of the baton between the crone and the maiden energy once more. But again, there's a liminal space between the crone and the maiden giving the baton to one another, because of course that happens, it happens every year. And so the birthing canal, it's uncomfortable for people to sit in liminal spaces. It's uncomfortable for people to sit in the winter time, which is why I love to teach about getting to know the spirit of the winter. Last week inside of the Wolf Mother Patreon page, we gathered for a Womb of the Winter cacao ceremony, and we spoke about all of that. We spoke about sitting in the womb and just witnessing, not forcing ourselves to have any projects that are coming out, allowing your creations to come forward though. This is a good piece. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. Okay. Just because we sit in the liminal space doesn't mean that we can't create anything. It just means that we honor a slower pace. It means that if you are still having these bursts of creativeness and you're like, holy shit, this is definitely something that I want to do, write that shit down. Do it. Just also remember, you don't have to go balls to the wall for it. There was an episode I did probably 3 years ago now on Wolf Mother podcast, and I spoke about why the winter is so hard. I forget what episode number it is, but I spoke about it in that way because I reminded everybody, and I'm going to remind you again, is that our ancestors had the opportunity to move fucking slow when the winter came. The society that we live in now doesn't necessarily move slow. Your hours for work have not gotten shorter. Your appointments that you have to go are still happening. Like, the society that we have doesn't slow down just because the days are shorter and the air is colder. However, that's how our ancestors used to live. They lived in rhythm with the seasons, right? So they really spent the autumn season preparing themselves so that during the winter, they were sitting around, spending time with each other, making large soups, maybe they canned a bunch of shit so that they could make more food. But they spent time inside with themselves, watching the snowfall, depending on where your ancestors are from. But I guess that's another piece that I can throw in here. I've been teaching about the Wheel of the Year, in alignment with the Wheel of the Year, living in rhythm with the cycles of the earth for a long time. And a question I've received many times that I do love is from people who are like, hey, I live in a tropical climate. It's not really getting that cold. What I always encourage those people to seek out is the difference in the food that they're eating. Because even though, like, I stood on Kauai for about 3 months back in 2022, I think that was. And it was so interesting because to me, that shit is hot all year, right? But for the locals, for them, it was so interesting to speak to them and them say, like, it does drop 10 degrees and that makes a difference for us. They can feel that in their bones. But it didn't just make a difference for just the people. Different foods were riper. Things went in and out of season with that 10-degree difference. So if you live in one of those tropical climates, I highly encourage you to witness the difference in the produce that happens throughout the year, especially if you live in a climate where, like, it's very northeast or just northern type of places where you do have the dead and the cold and the womb of the winter. Highly, highly encourage you to see the difference in the food that you're having. You have such I'm going to speak for myself. I have such an appreciation for when summer comes around and all the wonderful little, like strawberries and blueberries and everything's really back in season. I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. A fucking mango. I'm like, this is great. But then I also do love that autumnal time of year and also during the womb of the winter when it's a lot of squashes, like there's something that's beautiful about that. So little tidbit, and we'll take a deep breath here and let that go. So this is a liminal space, right? Imbolc is about that first flicker of light. This also is in alignment with, in the United States, what is it? Puxatani Phil? Groundhog Day. Hello. Took me a second to remember what it's called. Which is Groundhog Day, which if you don't know what Groundhog Day is, they basically let a groundhog, they give him the opportunity to come outside. If he comes outside, spring is near. If he stays in his beautiful little hut, then winter for 6 more weeks. And so it's a very cute and adorable tradition. Imbolc is that time though. It's liminal. Some of us are feeling the move to really get ready into spring. What I do recommend is if you've never gardened before and you're looking to garden this year, or you're a seasoned gardener, this is the time of the year where, at least for me, not only have I like tilled my soil, right? So I've like went through it with, whatever tools I'm using, but also inside of my house under, whatever lights that I have, I'm starting to grow little seedlings. I'm having little things begin to grow inside, as long as you can keep it warm and well lit, which obviously you have to have money to keep your fucking heat on, right? And money to buy the other resources that you need to have that. So you don't have to do that. But even if you do that as like a little experiment, if you have kids and you say, this is the first light. February is when we get the first glimmer of spring. So we're going to bring spring inside of the house, and you can set something up just simple, right? Like in your kitchen, things that are easy to grow in your kitchen, right? I remember growing up at my grandparents' house, they always in their kitchen, they always had onions and garlic and basil and rosemary, so things that are simple that you're also going to use, because then it's really exciting to reap the reward in the warmer months. But with that being said, I understand why people have such an aversion to this time of year. It's a time where if seasonal depression has not started to hit you, it usually does start to hit you. Something that Dylan and I tell a lot of the people that join the integration community that we have is buy one of those sun lamps. Do the 15 minutes every day with those sun lamps, right? That's more of a very physical thing to do. But metaphysically, this is the time to sit with yourself. As uncomfortable as it is, we're sitting in the liminal space. We're not forcing ourselves to get the creations out there, which is what I was talking about before. So I want to loop this back in. We're not forcing ourselves to get these creative endeavors out the door. We're just saying, what are the things that I'm actually desiring to create in the spring? What am I desiring to be doing with my life in the summer when it's warm, when it might feel better on my body, when my mental state might be better? And then, of course, like, what are the things that I want to be able to harvest in the autumn, right? So this is why I always talk about gardening, and if you can garden, it's an incredible way to understand yourself as well. Our gardens are an extension of us, right? We never want to overwater or over sunshine or give too much light to something, right? Like, it has to be just the right amount to support us, especially in this healing environment. Sometimes we just do too much shit. Sometimes we're not doing enough. It just depends on what's happening for us. So very important to witness the balance of how we are watering the garden of our lives. Before we continue this episode, I want to remind you that Wolf Mother Podcast is part of a larger body of work here in this incredible world. And I am Dan. I am a guide for deep, radical healing, transformational embodiment, and raw authenticity. So if something in today's episode began to stir you from within and you're interested in going deeper with ceremony, mentorship, and community, make sure to check the show notes. And watering the garden of our mental state and our emotional state. So with this time, I do recommend write your creations down. Maybe you do want to start some of your creations, but see if you can go 1% slower. No one likes when I say that. I don't even like when I have to tell myself that, truthfully. Because if you're super inspired and you're really feeling like you're in the flow of creation, and what is being in the flow of creation? It's just really feeling like you've got the energy to do it. But seeing if you can go 1% slower, because the trees outside are moving 1% slower. Your garden, it's vibrating, but it's going 1% slower. It's taking the rest that it needs. Why? Because then when we feel this outward energy that comes in the summertime, that is really when we're able to kind of hit the ground running. With that being said, I feel it's also important for me to remind everybody, we also have our own internal cycles, especially for any of you that are womb keepers and vulva holders. We have a menstrual cycle that always brings us in and out of these seasons. And even for those of you that are not womb keepers, there is a cycle that you internally also have, and also you can also follow the rhythm of the moon cycles, right? So I'm saying all of this, but remember, you have to do what's right for you. Because there was definitely a point in time where, for me, I was really trying to force myself to be doing as little as possible. I'm just going to be making soup. I'm just going to be canning things. I'm going to be doing the things that the ancestors would do. And I know I said this, I don't know what group I said this to, but I was like, our ancestors, they lived in those harsher environments and those harder times, and now we get the opportunity to not live in those times. What a beautiful fucking thing. So let me live my life for them as well. So that's why it's always take things with a grain of salt, especially when you're hearing them on the internet. But Imbolc puts us, again, in this liminal space that all of us don't like to be in, a reflective space. I shouldn't say all of us, but usually the liminal space is harder for us to be in. We're not at the end point, but we're not at the beginning point. We're walking between those two lines. So the birthing canal. When you sit in the birthing canal, right, we have the womb of the winter, we've got the winter solstice, you're really fucking deep in there. And then we look on the wheel of the year and we have the spring equinox. Boom, that's when we see the first blooms. But right here, the canal. When someone is giving birth, I know I've totally said this before. Sorry if you guys are hearing me say this for the 100th time. If you are hearing me say it for the 100th time, thank you fucking so much for being around for all these years. When someone is giving birth and the baby is no longer just entirely in the womb space and the baby has not reached the other side of being earth side yet, and the baby is in transition, And the person who's giving birth is in that really psychedelic liminal space, bringing life to this planet. It's all of the people in that space that are supporting. It's beautiful, right? You've got nurses and birth workers and family and friends that are cheering this person who's giving birth on. They're cheering on the person who's giving birth and the human who is about to come earthside. They're cheering both of them on. They're saying prayers. Maybe if you're super woo-woo and you've been in these positions, they're chanting, they're drumming, they're singing, they're dancing. They're just allowing the vibration of the space to be really supported and held. And I love that idea for us to do that for ourselves. Think about that you are in the birthing canal here and now. What would you say to yourself? And, of course, during the drum journey, we go deeper into that experience and what that actually looks like. But for the sake of this conversation that we're having here, I want you to reflect on, okay, if I was in the birthing canal of, let's say you wanted to start a business, that's an easy one, right? Or let's say you wanted to pick up crocheting. I have been trying to crochet now for what feels like forever, and I'm not getting very far. Making a lot of scarves, and that's about it. Making a lot of lines, and that's about it. But say I wanted to really focus on my crocheting projects, or maybe there's one thing I really wanted to create, a sweater. What are the words of affirmation that I would say to myself? If I was literally anybody else, if I was a friend that was like, I really want to make this sweater, what would I say to them? What prayers would I send out for my friend who's going through that? Like, sometimes we have to take ourselves out of the equation for us to actually support ourselves. We have to think, okay, shit, this is actually how I speak to my friends. Let me do that for myself now. But again, bring this idea that you, whatever it is, and it could be as simple as, I'm just trying to create better structure for myself in my life. I'm trying to create better habits for myself in my life. Maybe you don't know exactly what those habits are yet. Okay, this is where the liminal space is beautiful. You're in the birthing canal. Talk to yourself in the birthing canal. Okay, what are the habits that I feel I would like to see myself doing in the summer? What are the things I would like to reap and sow from those habits in autumn? The reality is, if you hit the ground running now and for the next 21 days, 40 days, 60 days, you hit the ground running with those intentions and you work diligently every single day, you might get to reap the rewards sooner rather than later. But that's the same thing once again in our gardens. There are some things that grow and we're able to start harvesting them much sooner. And there are other things that they need to stay in that incubation period. They need to stay in the womb, and then they need to be in the birthing canal for a little bit longer. Not everything is easy as 1, 2, 3, which is why I do feel the teachings of sitting with winter, sitting with Imbolc is so important. What are some practical ways that you can hang out with the season of Imbolc? Put a candle in every single room and light them, right? To bring back that little flicker of light. You can, this is a lot of times for dairy products. So like drinking milk and other things like that. Baking bread, making soups, making a Bridget's cross. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. A lot of times people want to make it specifically with a specific type of plant and straw, but I can also recommend that you can just get paper, try to cut them in the exact same measurement and size, and you can make a Bridget's cross of your own with paper, and you can color it. If you feel called to work with her as a goddess and a deity. Also, fun fact that Bridget is actually a patron saint, and that is so beautiful. And actually, as of 2023, I believe it was, is that Imbolc is actually a holiday in Ireland now, which is a huge deal, which is a great deal, right? And so the female deities getting the recognition that they need, right? And so doing things of that nature. If you have a fire, fuck yes, it's one of the fire festivals, sit around the fire. But that's why sometimes I recommend to people, just take the candles and light them in your home. If you only have one candle, sit with that one candle. Thank the flame for being there. Thank the flame. A lot of times we think of fire as it's got to burn it all away, especially in spirituality and things of this nature. My recommendation for my recommendation for everybody, not just specifically you, is think about the fire as it's beginning to illuminate the pieces of you that want to grow, that want to heal, that just want to feel 1% more authentically you, whatever the fuck that means for you. There's no right or wrong way for you to figure out what you need. And sometimes for people, sitting with Imbolc and the energy of Imbolc is not even about thinking about what they want in the future. It's simply about a reflection period. It's simply about saying, okay, this is how the whole last year for me went. And I'm just going to reflect on that. What did I like? What didn't I like? And then let me also throw in here, for those of you that are also in the Patreon, maybe not in the Wolf Mother Circle tier, but you're in the supporting me with social media and all different types of media, supporting this podcast. First off, thank you so much. Second off, I put in there a while ago, it's about a 15-minute exercise. And it speaks about that. Before we can manifest or really look at the things that we desire and what we want, we have to reflect on what we did. What worked? What didn't work? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? Are we still in alignment with the same things that we used to want? Because the reality is, I've seen a lot of discourse about this on the internet, and I definitely many years ago used to be one of those people who's like, oh, the new year for me is spring. It's the spring equinox. It's not January 1st. The reality is, every day could be the fucking new year for you. January 1st does have an energy around it because this is the society that we live in, and we live our lives by this calendar. Of course, the spring equinox also feels like a new year because the sun's starting to come out. Things are starting to bloom and bud. Your birthday probably feels like a new year for you as well. Birthdays are usually a very reflective time for people. For some people, they really feel like they live in alignment with the Chinese New Year, with the Jewish New Year. Like, there's so many different days, right? So what I've been, as of the last probably year and a half, is what I've been saying to my clients is, you can have a new year every day. You could start over every day. Actually, you could start over whenever the fuck you want. You could wake up at the beginning of the day and maybe it's not the new year, but then by the end of the day, you're like, screw it, I'm changing. It's a new year. New year, new me on a random day in May. And that is okay. That is totally okay. But take the time to at least reflect on those things, because you are changing every day. You are changing moment to moment. You're meeting new people, you're reading new things, you're listening to different podcasts, other things on social media. The world is changing, the people around you are changing. So what we desire is also, therefore, fucking changing. Hello. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. And I'm going to share this chant with you all now. I hope you enjoy it. It is my favorite chant to use for Imbolc when I've lit my candles and I get the house nice and dark. Also, actually, before I do that, Imbolc is February 1st. If I didn't fucking say that, I don't think I did. Also, I love the pagan discourse, right? So you've got some people that are like, Imbolc is February 1st. It's never not February 1st. You have some people that believe Imbolc is the first full moon following Imbolc. So here's what I have to say about that. All of these pagan festivals, there's time in between each and every one of them, right? Like the winter solstice, we have on the 21st, right? You've got winter solstice and Yule. That happens at the end of December. Then Imbolc happens February 1st, maybe, right? Then you have the spring equinox, which happens on March, towards the end-ish time period. Sometimes they change, sometimes they don't. And so you've got time between these experiences. Enjoy them. It doesn't need to be, oh my goodness, Imbolc is February 1st. I have to do all of these rituals. I have to open my doors and blow cinnamon through them. And I have to light all the candles. And I have to sweep everything, all the energy from the month before out of my house. Like, accessible spirituality, I feel, is the root of all of my teachings. And so to make your life accessible, to make these practices accessible, make them fit your life. If you work all day on February 1st, you're not going to do jack shit with anything that I just said, and that's okay. Choose a day that you can be present. It is more important that you are present for these practices than you do it on a specific day. Now, this also, speaking of closed practices, and maybe we can talk about this another time, I want to get feedback from you guys. Tell me what you guys want to learn from me on this podcast. I talk about all of this in all of the classes that I teach, but if you are not able to join those classes or don't desire, like, tell me what you'd like to see here. When it comes to the, oh shit, what were we talking about? Ha, that's so funny. All right, well, it slipped my mind now, and I will probably talk about it at my class on February 7th. So anyway, many blessings to you and to yours, and let's use this chant. Take a deep breath in and let it go. If you'd like to close your eyes down, you can. If you'd like to keep them open, just give them a soft gaze for a moment if you can. I open, gently open to the divine inside me. I open, gently open to the sacred light. I open, gently open to the divine inside me. I open, gently open to the sacred light. I open, gently open to the divine inside me. I open, gently open to the sacred light. Take a deep breath in. And let it go.